Bombshell tonight. 4-time convicted killer, Bryan Kohberger. Do you remember the 4 beautiful, sleeping University of Idaho students that were slaughtered in their beds? That Bryan Kohberger tonight says, I'm innocent. And he wants to take back his guilty plea? Whoa. Bryan Kohberger now says, they tricked me into pleading guilty. I know I stood up in court and I said I did it, but I didn't do it. And that's my truth. He actually fixed his mouth to say, it's my truth. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us.
He stood in that courtroom. He said the word guilty 4 times. Now he says none of it was true. You remember this case. 4 University of Idaho students, murdered in their sleep. A whole country held its breath waiting for a trial. Then Bryan Kohberger pled guilty, and everyone thought this story was finally over. It isn't. Kohberger just filed a handwritten petition from prison. He wants his guilty plea thrown out. He's calling himself innocent. He's claiming his own defense team deceived him. Here's promise number 1. By the end of this video, you'll understand the exact legal argument he's using, and whether it can actually work. Here's promise number 2. You'll hear directly from the victim's family, in their own words, about what this news did to them. Before we go further, hit subscribe now. This case moves fast, and you don't want to miss the next filing. Think about what it takes to reverse a guilty plea. Courts don't just let people change their minds. There has to be a legal crack in the wall. Kohberger's lawyers think they found one. So what actually happened between that courtroom and this petition? What changed? And why does an accused killer with a PhD track record in criminology think he can outmaneuver a system built to keep pleas final? The answer starts with what prosecutors never had to prove in open court. To understand why Kohberger thinks he has a chance, you need to see exactly what evidence he pled guilty to escape. Evidence let's deliver on that first promise. Here's what was actually on the table. Investigators built their case on a knife sheath left at the scene. DNA testing linked it to Kohberger at odds, reported in the octillions to 1. That's not a coincidence. That's a fingerprint written in genetics. Then there's the vehicle, a white sedan, caught on camera near the crime scene in the early morning hours. Investigators tracked its movements using surveillance footage across multiple routes. Then there's the phone. Cell tower data placed Kohberger's device active near the scene, then silent, then active again minutes later, miles away. Investigators cross-referenced the timing with the vehicle's captured movements. The 2 data trails matched almost exactly. A forensics expert who reviewed the case called it overwhelming, the kind of evidence layered from digital, physical, and biological sources, all pointing the same direction. Now think about the injuries. Reports describe well over 100 wounds across 4 victims. That level of violence doesn't happen without transfer evidence. Skin, fibers, DNA. One forensic professional explained it simply. Every contact leaves a trace. The more violent the act, the harder it becomes to leave no trace behind. So why would someone facing this mountain of evidence still plead guilty in the first place? Because a guilty plea took the death penalty off the table. It's the classic trade. Give up your right to fight, and you keep your life. But now Kohberger wants both. He wants the plea deal's protection undone in the courtroom, while still avoiding the outcome that protection was designed to prevent. That's not just bold, that's almost unheard of. So how exactly does someone try to unwind a guilty plea after the fact? What does the law actually allow? The evidence explains why he pled guilty. Now here's the legal loophole he's betting his life on. Key question. Here's promise number 2, delivered.
To argue that the plea wasn't knowing and voluntary. I think it's going to be tough because obviously we all heard the plea colloquy, right?
Let me see, Nima. He's getting his PhD in criminology.
I think that's going to be the toughest one.
It was
right?
knowing. Next.
Yeah.
That's out.
So I wrote it down. Asked Kohberger this directly.
Yeah, so
on the record, before he pled. That path looks closed. Is there new proof of actual innocence? Given the DNA, the vehicle, and the phone data, experts say this route faces long odds. Did prosecutors withhold evidence? This would require the state to admit wrongdoing, something experts say almost never happens voluntarily. Did his own defense attorneys fail him? This is the one path experts believe actually has a pulse. Would his own lawyers ever admit that? That's the real question nobody outside that legal team can answer yet. One former federal prosecutor broke it down this way: unless the defense team is willing to say they made a critical mistake, this petition may go nowhere. Think about what that means. Kohberger's entire path back to a trial depends on the very lawyers who saved his life admitting they failed him. Would they really do that? Would any defense team throw away a deal that kept their client off death row? And if they refuse, does Kohberger sit in prison forever, chasing a legal door that's already welded shut? There's one detail making this even stranger. Kohberger claims a strand of hair found in a victim's hand points to someone else entirely. Do you think Kohberger's own defense team will admit they made a mistake? Or is this petition dead on arrival? Tell us below. That hair claim sounds explosive. But what investigators say actually happened tells a very different story. Suspect/truth investigators say the hair claim falls apart under one simple explanation. According to sources close to the case, debris on the victim's hand came from beneath a bed, not from a struggle. No pulled roots, no second attacker, just environmental material, the kind you'd expect on a floor that hadn't been cleaned in weeks. That's the foundation of Kohberger's entire innocence claim, a stray piece of debris. If a claim this thin is the strongest card he has left, you need to see how the rest of this case unfolds. Subscribe now so you don't miss the ruling. Now consider the psychology here. A psychoanalyst who reviewed the case describes a pattern common among certain violent offenders: an obsessive need for control, even from behind bars. One psychoanalyst put it directly: denied access to future victims. A person like this often redirects that same compulsion toward the people already closest to the case. That means every filing, every petition, every headline may serve a purpose beyond the legal system. It keeps his name in the conversation. It keeps the victims' families trapped in the story. Is that manipulation? Or does he genuinely believe his own version of events? Even experts who've spent decades studying cases like this aren't fully certain. Do you think Kohberger actually believes he's innocent? Or is this pure manipulation? Drop your theory below. One thing is certain: what happens next depends on a ruling nobody can predict. So where does this actually leave the case, and the family still waiting for real justice? Unresolved close right. Now there's no hearing scheduled, no timeline, no promises. Legal experts say if this moves forward, a new trial could take a year, maybe longer, to reach a courtroom. Victims' family members say they've spent years already just trying to hold on to hope that this would end. Now they wait again, unsure if this petition changes anything or simply delays the truth they've been demanding. Think about what that means for a family who already sat through one hollow plea hearing. They're being asked to relive it, with no guarantee of an answer. This case is far from finished. Subscribe now, because when that ruling comes down, you'll want to know exactly what it means, and we'll break it down the moment it happens. If you were the judge, would you grant this hearing? Tell us your verdict below. A man who confessed in open court now says that confession was a lie. The system wasn't built for that. And neither was this family.